Sorry, everybody. I was apparently co-host, but apparently I have to be made actual host in order to not have the meeting end. So, Jennifer, do you want to?
Yes, I'm going to make you host right now. I made you co-host. I thought that would work, but it wasn't enough. You have to
apparently not. And then I think
top dog. So we're going to
sorry,
top dog right now.
Sorry to all of you having to listen to our business, but Jennifer, in the morning, I'll log on and make you the host then.
We will get it done.
One way or another, we will figure this out, guys.
Okay. It seems to me that you are host now. Does it seem to you that you are?
I mean, it looks the same as it did before, so we can try it.
It told me that you were host, so.
Okay.
I want to believe it, but I'm scared to log off because then if the meeting crashes, this will be another disaster. So let's see.
Try it and we will all have faith.
I'm going to log off. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye. We did it. Yay. So I always like to joke with folks, we're trained as social workers, not as teachers necessarily, or as IT professionals. That is not our area of expertise. And I feel like we always try to make it work so smoothly, and there's always something. So thank you guys for your patience. Hopefully, we're 5 minutes after, so hopefully that's the last of our interruptions. So thank you all for being here. I'm really glad to see all of you. Yeah, and it sounds like Lucretia's going to turn her camera off while she eats. You all feel free to either eat on camera or turn your cameras off while you're eating, but I would ask that, while you're not eating or in the restroom, we don't need to see that, that you have your cameras on throughout the evening, just so that we can start to, like I said before, like really build the community. And, one of the challenges with being in an online program is that it's harder to build connection. And so, especially with so many of our courses being asynchronous, where you don't have that weekly, even in-person video session, it's so hard to build those relationships. And really, this is a group of folks who, are going to be there to support you throughout your academic time with us, but really can be people who are part of your larger community and support network as you enter into the profession of social work. And I will just say, like, when I was in my MSW program, some of the folks who I was in that program with are still some of my closest friends today, people who I reach out to for professional guidance and advice, resources for patients and clients. So I encourage you to really develop these relationships, and that can be more challenging in the type of environment that this program is, but I want you all to try your best to make those connections. So I'm just going to respond to Professor Henson, who is texting me, making sure that it worked and that she didn't leave us all in the lurch. All right, I'm going to share my screen with y'all. And I would just ask that you all give me a thumbs up if you can see slides that say Master of Social Work Program Orientation. Awesome. Cool beans. Cool beans. I'm dating myself. All right. So as you all know, tonight we have from 6 to 8:30. We may or may not go that long. I am very much, and you'll see this with me as a professor as well, that I am not someone who has a need to wax on about things that we have addressed, right? So we're going to go through what our agenda is for tonight, and we end when we end. I very much feel that, sometimes that means we go a little longer, and sometimes it means we go a little shorter. And, we need to address certain amounts of content, but I'm not going to waste your time. And I would assume that you wouldn't waste mine either in the future, with things that aren't substantive. So I respect your time in that sense. So in theory, we're going from 6 to 8:30 tonight. But we'll see how long that takes us. So let me just go to the next slide. So we have 8 modules for you over the course of tonight and tomorrow. Tonight's probably the easiest, so I maybe drew the best straw here this weekend with getting tonight's sessions, which is fun for me because I've done the full Saturday in the past. So I'm like, woohoo, I get to engage with you guys tonight and then pass it along to my colleagues tomorrow. You'll notice that we will be somewhat out of order. So with really only one exception. So we've got one person admitting here. Okay. So tonight we're going to talk about program introduction, faculty introduction. So I will kind of give you an intro to our faculty and talk about our professional program manual. And then tomorrow morning, you're going to start with what would normally be module 6, which is your introduction to the practicum, which historically has been called your field placement or your internship. Professor Nick Zimet, will talk tomorrow a little bit about the language of practicum. And so we are transitioning to calling it practicum as opposed to field, which he'll talk, like I said, more about tomorrow. But just so that you kind of have awareness, we kind of use those terms interchangeably a bit. So if you hear one or the other, just know we're talking about the same thing. Field and practicum are the same thing. It's your internship. But we are moving toward the use of the word practicum as opposed to field. So that'll be your first session tomorrow, which is, like I said, normally module 6. Then we'll hop back into regularly scheduled program, as you might say, with module 2, which will be you guys all introducing yourselves and to each other, talk a little bit about course sequencing and schedules. And then in the late morning and afternoon, you're really going to kind of dive into that clinical content, because this for you all is your 700 level clinical specialized year. So we're going to be talking about the use of the DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, as well as talking about how to locate peer-reviewed resources using literature to support your work. So we will have Kari Jagush from the library coming to talk more about how to do research, how to effectively find sources to support your work. And she will walk you through that, give you some examples of how to do those searches. This is something that isn't necessarily intuitive. It's something that, you know, a little bit of a crash course in can be beneficial, even if you've already had courses or you're straight out of undergrad. Getting a refresher on how to utilize data, how to utilize peer-reviewed journal articles and the library will be super helpful for you. Then you'll take a lunch break, and it's short. So our breaks tomorrow are quite short, but we have just a lot of content that we want to share with you all. In the afternoon after lunch, you're going to talk about justice-informed practice. And what does that really mean? What does the word justice mean in this environment? What does that look like in terms of our profession and our work with clients and patients? You will work on some identity wheels and talk a little bit about theoretical frameworks. What is sort of the premise of our profession? And they're going to talk about the fact that you know, we really look at people from a holistic standpoint, right? We don't just look at mental health. We don't just look at family dynamics. We look at the systems and structures to, you know, ultimately, so often for social workers, we're getting to interact with individuals because there is what they would identify as a problem or a challenge in their life, and we're there to help them navigate that. And so we're going to look at the whole person. What are the systems and the people and, you know, the medical issues or the mental health issues that are affecting this identified problem, so that we can utilize whatever is going well in an individual system to fix or address or resolve that problem or connect them with resources. So we will talk about those theoretical frameworks tomorrow afternoon. It's like a brief break and then talk about continued preparation for clinical practice, as well as inclusive language and some very sort of crash course information in APA formatting, which is the writing style that we use in the MSW program. So this is sort of the plan for tonight and for tomorrow. And I know that it's a lot of information and you will feel so exhausted by the time you go to bed tomorrow night. But hopefully after that, you're feeling very well prepared to really dive into your courses and get started in the program. So I will continually take pauses. a hazard of this line of work is talking too much. But I am a chronic interrupter, and I very much welcome other people to be a chronic interrupter with me. So if you ever have a question throughout this conversation, either just unmute yourself and speak up and interrupt me, or put your hand up or put a comment in the chat. So I'm good with all of that, but I will intermittently pause just to see if there are any questions. So anybody have any questions on the schedule as outlined? All right, and you'll have to excuse me. I've got my Sprite Zero here because last time that we had one of these sessions, I ended up with like a coughing attack, and now I'm very paranoid that that's going to happen again. So hopefully not. All right, so a little bit of housekeeping, faculty introductions, and sort of general program information that we're going to go through tonight. So we are very lucky to have, it's interesting because we have a small faculty, but one of the benefits of that is that we all really get to know you, and we get to know you very well. We get to read your work and really develop relationship with you all. So Edie Shapolsky she is the director of the MSW program, but she is also the chair of all social work at Bethel. So she oversees, we have an in-person bachelor in social work. We also have an online bachelor in social work and our online MSW program. So she oversees all of them, but she is the director for the MSW program. So you will want to make sure you know she is the person who would be the top administrator for our social work program. But Dr. Diane Dahl, she is the dean, and we are currently housed in the graduate studies area. But beginning in fall, we will be part of the College of Health Sciences. And so we will have a new dean. And that is because they are transitioning the university from really compartmentalizing the online programs and in-person programs to what they're referring to as one Bethel. So instead of it being separated out, online bachelor's or adult studies and graduate school master's programs, they're going to put all of it in the same sort of bowl and then divide that up by areas of study. So we will be in the College of Health Sciences. Matthew Vraa, VRAA, will be our new dean, as far as I'm aware. Diane Dahl is still our dean until that switch happens in the fall. So she would be the person who is above Dr. Shapolsky, who is our chair and then director for the program. Dr. Dahl is super approachable. So is Dr. Shapolsky. So when you think about leadership, like these are folks who you could certainly go to. And even when we transition to having Dr. Vraa as our dean, Dr. Dahl will certainly be a resource to us. And it comes from a nursing background, but she is very much supportive of social work and has a really strong understanding of our profession. So she is certainly someone you could go to in leadership if you needed some support or feedback. But you would start always with your professor, then it would be the director, which is Dr. Shapolsky, and then after that, it would be the dean. So we encourage you to utilize that sort of hierarchy, starting with professor, then director, chair, dean. All right, so Dr. Shapolsky, you all are going to love her. She is a character, and she is such a visionary when it comes to progressive social work practice. She is the person who developed this justice-informed practice perspective. Our program is very innovative on a national level. In fact, last year, so Council on Social Work Education, CSWE, is the national body that accredits all social work programs. So if you want to get a social work degree from an accredited university, they have to be accredited through CSWE, Council on Social Work Education. Last year, our program won an award for being the best program for field from a justice-informed perspective and for doing innovative work in the practicum setting or field setting. Because of our focus on this justice-informed perspective. So that really has been a result of Dr. Shapolsky's passion for making sure that social work education is engaged in justice-informed work. She teaches a number of courses in our program. She has a background in chemical health, community-based services, homelessness, and working with refugees. She has sled dogs. She has, I don't know, like 5 or 6 ginormous sled dogs that she has in her home. She's an avid traveler. She's on the National Ski Patrol, and she's often up at Lutzen doing ski patrol. Even with broken bones, she's up there on ski patrol. And she is just such an active person, and she just loves people. She loves community, and she is a fun person to be around. So she is a visionary, and also maintains regular skills in social work practice. So you all will really enjoy her. Professor Nick Zimet is the director of our practicum or field work. So he is the person who's really going to be in charge of your internships and placements. That will be his primary role with you. He will teach some courses, but primarily he does work with the practicum and internship placements. He is a married guy, dad of 4 youths, and he's very involved in their activities. His professional background is in clinical social work, mental health practice, and community collaboration, which makes him so great in this role, because he really has an ability to connect with our community partners, internship sites. He is out there pounding the pavement, as if you will, making sure that we keep those connections alive and well in our community. Professor Stacy Hepburn is someone who you probably won't interact with a whole ton. She is the director of the in-person BSW program, and she may or may not teach some classes for MSW, but right now I don't think she is. So it's more just for you to know that she is on faculty, but she primarily focuses on that in-person BSW program. She went to NYU. She has a background in working in mental health. She's done some hospital work, I believe, as well, having private practice, working special interest with the BIPOC community. And she really is so fun in engaging her Jamaican heritage into the way that she teaches, and into her sort of point of view in working with specialized populations. So you will so enjoy her if you have her for any class, and is certainly a resource to you in terms of advising if she is someone you feel you might connect with. And then this is me. I teach a lot of the MSW classes. By the time you guys graduate, you will probably be very sick of me. So I will tell you a little bit about my background. So I started practicing in 2006. So 2006, so just about 20 years ago. And I started working for Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services. So that's Child Protective Services for Los Angeles County. I worked there for 8 years, and I worked in downtown South Central Los Angeles. So I worked Skid Row, Hollywood, and Compton areas. So that was my first 8 years in social work. I did 4 years doing family maintenance and reunification. So that's like children who there's an open case where we have determined that there has been abuse or neglect that's occurring, and we're trying to either keep kids home safely or return them safely to home. And then I spent 4 years doing dependency investigation, which is more forensic style interviewing of witnesses, expert witnesses, collaterals, and then the clients themselves, and then testifying on behalf of the department about what the recommendations were for the family in terms of either keeping the child at home or returning them home or moving toward a permanent plan of adoption. And I wrote the court reports for those hearings. After that, I did some work in intensive outpatient psychiatric care. So it was like a day program for people who had chronic and persistent mental illness, coming 9 to 5 daily for group therapy, for occupational therapy. and so worked there. That was in Pasadena. So most of my work was in California. And then I worked for a network of 3 hospitals in Los Angeles. They were level 1 trauma hospitals. I primarily was in the emergency room, ICU, critical care. I did work in mother baby for a while, medical oncology, surgical care. Where else? I don't know, anywhere at the hospital really. And I taught for 5 years full time at Azusa Pacific University, which is where I went to school. So I was a full-time faculty member there for 5 years before transitioning back to the Midwest. Then I was the manager for emergency services at a hospital in Milwaukee, downtown. And then I transitioned to Mayo Clinic in 2020, January 2020, right before the pandemic. And I maintain a practice there. I work in transplant oncology. So I work with cancer patients who are getting transplants. So I do their psychosocial evaluations. I run their support group. And then I meet with patients at 2 additional junctures during their transplant care, really to talk about coping and provide emotional support. So I do that in addition to being the director of our online MSW program and teaching a lot of the MSW classes. So needless to say, I like to be busy. And quite frankly, I love social work. So you could not keep me away if you tried. I love what I do. And yes, it is stressful and it is a lot, but I really do love it. I also am married to someone who's active duty in the military. He's been in for over 20 years. We have a 4-year-old daughter. We were late in life parents, new parents. And so we have a 4-year-old who is sassy and spunky and so much fun, but keeps us real busy. And we love to travel. So that's kind of our passion, I guess you could say. And last year, our big trip was to Iceland, Norway, and Svalbard. We try to see the world when we can. So that's a little bit about me. Dr. Minyoung Lim is our director of research at Bethel. And she is very active in her research and writing work. Her area of specialty in terms of research interest is with working amongst refugees and immigrants, looking at racial disparity, discrimination, and resilience. And she has had some really fantastic publications around refugees and immigrants from Burma. And I would encourage you to look at her work. She is so knowledgeable. And she moved to the Twin Cities from Philadelphia, but is originally from Korea. And she is just so kind and compassionate. And I think you all will really enjoy having her as an instructor. She will be the one teaching your research courses, but she probably will jump in and out of maybe teaching a couple other courses for you as well. Dr. Samuel Zelanga, wow, if you get to have him, you will be so lucky. Now, courses with him will not be easy. He is just so incredibly smart and he has so much experience and knowledge, especially around things like social policy and social change. I encourage you, if you see his name as being a professor for one of your classes, gird your loins. It will be a difficult class, but you will learn so much. Every time I interact with him, even over an email, I'll read his email and be like, wow, I just learned 15 things I didn't know. And he is just so brilliant, and we are so, so lucky to have him. Who else? Professor Corey Tolliver comes to us from, I believe he's in Virginia still, but he is active in his practice. You'll notice that many of us still maintain a practice. I think for a lot of us, it really is helpful to us in our practice in the environment of social work to be in academia because we are staying on our toes. We're active in research and it makes us better with our clients and patients. But likewise, in the classroom, I feel like we all just stay so much more relevant because we are day to day working with clients and patients. So I know at least when I teach classes, I'm constantly bringing to class, hey, today this happened with a client. What would you all do? What are your thoughts? How would you utilize the content from this course in terms of dealing with this client? Really trying to make it real for you all is the goal of that. Professor Shapolsky, he is actually, yes, married to our chair and director, and he teaches the course on liberation theology. So that will be a course. I don't know if you all are taking it this summer, but you will take a course with him on that. And his areas of expertise are around justice and human rights, as well as juvenile justice. So you will be having him, I believe, for that course on liberation theology. Professor Chavalis, she is an adjunct for us and typically teaches one of the seminars for practicum, and she also works in child welfare. So let's see. Okay, and Professor Jennifer Henson, who is the one who so kindly got our Zoom working this evening. She is from Texas, and she is a phenomenal researcher and has background in clinical practice. She is newer to our faculty. You can kind of tell by this slide because there's not a lot of info on it yet, but she will be with you all of tomorrow afternoon and probably part of the morning as well. So you will get to know her quite well. She lives in Texas still, but she will be up with us from time to time. I know next spring she will be in person up here in Minnesota with us for the semester. So I think you'll really enjoy her. She is very high caliber and has a really high level of expectation in a good way. She will challenge you to work hard and to really grow. So I'm sure you will enjoy her as well. Deb Peterson, she is phenomenal. She is one of our administrative folks, and she primarily works as the clinical coordinator. So she is going to be doing more of the administrative work for your practicum placements, working with those systems like Tavera, which Professor Zymet will talk about more tomorrow. But some of the recording systems, communications between your supervisors at your placements, making connections around your evaluations in your practicum placements, that type of thing. And she is just so kind and I'm sure willing to help with anything that you need. We also are so lucky to have Michelle Petway, who is our other administrative staff person. And she is newer to Bethel and is someone who just works incredibly hard to make sure that students are having a good experience. If there's anything you need in terms of I don't know, paperwork or registration or program, enrollment information, she is a great person to contact. So I will take a brief pause and just see any questions or any thoughts so far around faculty. Have any of you had any of these faculty members? What has your experience been? Would love to hear from some of those, because I know some of you I've had in class, some of you I know have taken classes with other folks. So would love any comments from those of you who have already started classwork with us.
I have had classes with you, with Dr. Henson and Dr. Lim, and it's all been so lovely. And I'm excited for summer classes.
Woohoo! Probably not excited that it's summer and you're taking classes, but it's another step toward completion, right? Good.
Yeah, I worked really closely with Dr. Nick Zemet.
Yep.
He was my supervisor for my field placement last semester,
Okay.
actually. So yeah, he was wonderful, very helpful, always responded to emails promptly. He was great. So very knowledgeable, taught me a lot.
And I will say to you guys, I think for the most part, faculty, and I think being upfront about it is the best way to go. Faculty do their best to get back to folks within 24 hours or 48 hours. Weekends are different. And then also, a lot of us do maintain a practice. So I think just knowing that, if you don't hear back, within 24 hours or so, send a follow-up email, because it might be that we saw it, but we were with another student or a patient or client and we meant to get back to you and then it slipped our minds or whatever. So, don't hesitate to reach out to your faculty members. We're here to support you. And even when we have other stuff going on, we want those messages and we want to be here to walk with you through the program. So, all right. So some of a few of these things might be repeat for a couple of you who have started in classes, but we want to make sure that you all get this information. So you will have advisors, but they're primarily going to be through student success. So we are not the faculty. This is sort of something that may be in transition in the future, but at least for now, the faculty are not going to be the ones to tell you which courses to take and when. That's going to be your student success advisor. So make sure you contact them. Certainly we are here to provide support, but it's really more in terms of like a professional feedback. So you will be assigned to one of us for support in that sense, but in terms of your course planning, that's something you need to go to your student success advisor for. I'm going to go through some of the program policies and procedures, Phi Alpha as well, and then talk about our specialized practice here. So your student success advisor is going to be May Lindloff. So I don't know if you all have had contact with her. She's fairly new. So I don't know that I think maybe I've interacted with her maybe once. She is new to us. But her email address is going to be that general graduate advising email address, but the phone number is here as well. She is going to be the one who would be helping you with your course enrollment, course planning in terms of sequencing and scheduling, navigating that registration process, any academic petitions you need to do. And she can also provide some referrals for other support and resources as needed. She would also be a great person to talk to if you, for any reason, need accommodations. We all have different learning styles and different learning needs. For some folks, there are unique needs that may need to be addressed by the ORS department in terms of special accommodations in the classroom. Certainly, we encourage you to pursue that, and May would be a great person to start that conversation with if that's something that you think you need. For example, like extra time for test taking and things of that nature, you know, just because we all do have different learning styles. There is a advising week in June. So the dates are June 23rd through 27th. I believe that your student success advisor, May, will reach out to you all if she hasn't already to set up a time to meet with you to review your schedule and your plan. Has anybody already heard from May about that? I saw a couple heads nodding. No? Okay. And I'm going to take a couple notes too. I'm just writing down to have May reach out about advising week. It's amazing how quickly time flies. And I'm thinking like, oh, today is the 16th of May. I mean, we're what, just over a month away from that already. And to think end of June is something we need to be planning for seems wild, but time flies so quickly. And so you want to make sure to be having some appointments on your calendar if you need to be meeting with her. All right. And this is kind of what I was mentioning before, which is that you all will have access to us as professional advisors. And we are here to support you in talking more about licensure, about long-term plans. And if we end up having time tonight, we might do a little bit of student introduction. That is technically on the schedule for tomorrow, but tomorrow's schedule is super full. So if I'm talking fast, part of it is I'm kind of hoping to help my colleagues out by doing a little bit of that tonight. But, you know, really we want to get to know you, get to know what are your goals professionally and how can we help you get there. Obviously the faculty will be your advisors. I don't think there's much more to say about that. So these slides are all going to be shared with you. And I just want to highlight, these are all links. So in your Moodle, is anybody not familiar with Moodle yet? Shakila, did I pronounce that correctly? Shakila? Okay. So Shakila and anybody else. So Moodle is our, what do they call it? LMS, Learning Management System. All I know is it's the platform for where you look at your courses and you submit all your assignments. Like Moodle is the program online where you access everything. And in Moodle, you should be assigned to a course. It's not a course like for a grade, but a course that would be called MSW Student Resources page. Does that sound familiar to any of you? I see a few heads nodding. Okay. So that resource page is going to also have links to all of this. I will tell you, it is super, super important, and it feels dull and like, man, I got into social work to help people, and I want to be in the practicum, and I want to be doing work. Sometimes reading the fine lines of everything is important in order to do that, and to meet those needs. Reading through our policy manual and student handbook is going to be so important for you all to help you know how to progress. We have minimum requirements around your GPA and what you maintain for your GPA in this program. You know, I'll say this, you know, sometimes it feels like faculty are hard on folks, or we really are pushing you and courses are difficult. There is method to our madness in the sense that we recognize that the work that we do after graduation and in our settings, both in internship, but then ultimately professionally as well, that work is work with people who are in a difficult place in life, who have experienced potentially marginalization or oppression. We want to make sure that when you graduate, you are prepared to adequately help in those situations with those individuals. And it's interesting because often people will say, oh, social work's a hard job and you probably don't even get paid that much. Yeah, but I have the privilege of interacting with folks at the worst moment of their lives and either being an agent who can help to let them access their own ability to create positive change, or I can be someone who adds to the chaos, who adds to the difficulty, who makes those challenges worse. I don't want to do that. And I know none of you do either. So we are going to push you in this program because we want to make sure when you graduate that it's sort of like in the medical world where they say do no harm. We want to make sure you do no harm either, right? And so that's going to mean doing some hard work in your courses to be adequately prepared to actually do the hard job of social work. But the flip side of that responsibility is it's such a privilege, you know, those moments working with folks where their loved one is dying, or working with folks who are overcoming addiction. There are so many moments that I look at, even in the 20 years I've been in social work, where I just think I wouldn't trade that for anything. Those were powerful moments for them and for me. And it is a gift and privilege to be able to walk alongside folks as they overcome some of these challenges in their life. So I encourage you to go through that handbook and manual to see what we're expecting of you and to familiarize yourself with the sort of process by which, you know, you would deal with concerns in a course, concerns around a grade, if there is a grievance, or, you know, reasons why we would terminate someone from the program. You know, frankly, we take what we do seriously. And so if we feel you're not prepared to adequately work with this population, or you're not progressing in a way that would be effective for clients and patients, we will have conversations with you. It won't be an overnight decision. But if we feel you're not prepared for the field, we will talk to you about that. And it can always lead to a path of saying, this might not be the right space for you. And so we want to make sure you're prepared for that. So just be sure that you review all this content. It's available to you both in the links via this PowerPoint, as well as that MSW student resource page, which again, I encourage you to go through. So any quick questions about that, comments about that, thoughts about that? I'm sure that sounds very like intimidating, and I don't mean it in that sense. But I and my colleagues, you know, we take what we do seriously. So any feedback or thoughts?
Is this
Y'all are
gonna
like,
be available for like the whole semester? I can go back and look at it at any time?
yep. So the
Okay.
slides are going to be emailed to you, as well as a recording of the sessions this weekend. And then on your Moodle, that MSW resource page, all of this is also linked on there. So you'll have access to it in like a few different ways, but that's a great question. Thank you. And do I pronounce your name Airly or Airlia?
Yeah, it's Airly.
Airly. That's a
Yes.
beautiful name.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts, questions before we move forward? I feel this like it's Friday night. Just get through the content. We want to move on. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about student governance, but this is not a huge piece of the conversation. We'll talk about CSW EPAS. So CSWE is, like I said before, Council on Social Work Education, for those of you taking notes and whatnot. So CSWE is the accrediting body. EPAS, those are the standards by which any accredited program has to be able to say that when we graduate students, that they meet these 9 competencies, like that students are competent in 9 areas. So I'm going to go through that with you briefly. But part of CSWE's expectations are that students are participating in our program, not just from a classroom standpoint, but in terms of the administration of our program. So we want you to feel like a participant. We want you to reach out. We want you to have a voice into our policies and procedures. And as a result, well, here's some more information about that, which is in the handbook. And looking at our institutional policies and speaking into that. But we do have a student organization as well, and that's BISWA, Bethel Student Social Work Association. And this is something that you all have the opportunity to be a part of. So I encourage you to reach out if that's something that you want to be a part of, if you want to be involved in leadership. I know they also put on events that are community-wide in the sense that they are involving the in-person BSW program, the online BSW program, as well as the master's program. So I encourage you to get involved in BISWA. Give me 1 second. My other screen just like went out randomly. Maybe my mouse just died. There we go. Okay. We also have the Graduate Student Social Work Association. I will be perfectly candid with you. I am not sure whether there really is a distinction between the two. I think it really is one organization. I don't know if any of you are part of it. Emma, I saw you nodding your head a little bit. No, you're not a part of it. Okay. I really think that it is kind of like one program. So I would need clarification on this. Either way, we have a student group. I think that they're more consolidated than separate though. So I can get more information on that. I'll just make myself a note. And make sure that that gets sent out to you all. All right. We really encourage you, like I said, to organize in your own interest, engage in multiple ways throughout the program. We also encourage you all to like talk to each other, email each other. A lot of my students will get on like group texts that they send to each other. Like if you have questions about an assignment, it's like, I'm not getting this. What do you guys think? Like before reaching out to faculty. But then one of the nice things is like students will also sometimes reach out and say, hey, we were all talking and we're all confused about this one thing. I'm like, oh, okay, I clearly need to address that, because if everyone's confused, sometimes it's something where like maybe you missed a line in the instructions. And so talking to your peers, they're like, no, it's this, do that, whatever. And then other times they'll tell the professor like, hey, nobody gets it. You need to clarify this. And that's helpful for us too. And so we really want to like empower you guys. I love when I get those messages from students like, hey, we talked and this is like, this is not right. Like, or we're concerned, because we want you to do well. And also it's harder for us when you guys aren't doing well, quite frankly. We want you to succeed because it's easier for us too. So let us know if there are concerns about the program. I think we're all very receptive to that. I would also say that for the most part, our faculty, like, of course, we want you to like have mutual respect, you know, with us and for us, but we are a fairly casual bunch. So if you guys have concerns with the program or something feels like it's not running correctly, you're not getting good communication, just let us know. We're not easily offended. We want to hear that stuff and we want to make changes. You know, our program isn't new anymore, but it's still in its earlier years. So of course there are going to be hiccups. There are going to be things where like, well, that didn't go the way we planned. So we want that feedback. So don't ever hesitate to speak into what's going on in the program. You guys are paying a lot of money to get a degree. And you're also putting in a lot of hard work. You're taking time away from families, from other work to do this. We respect that immensely. So we want you to let us know if things aren't going well. And if there's something we can do to support you personally or professionally, or in this educational format, we want to know about that. We really do. All right, Phi Alpha Honor Society. So this is a national honor society for social work students. I think all of us on faculty are enrolled. I am, so maybe I guess I'm just making an assumption about other people. But this is something that you can get involved in early on. It's really based on your progress in the program, your success in courses, and then it is a connection long term to other professionals. They offer grant opportunities, awards, scholarships, a lot of alumni support. So once you graduate, there will be options for connection professionally, which is always a great thing to have. You also get like distinguished cords at graduation, and I think like a medallion or a medal or something like that. So anyway, there's a lot of benefits to being part of Phi Alpha. And I think in some ways, like the biggest benefit is that community, like I was mentioning earlier, like having that connection to other students and to other professionals will ultimately serve your clients and patients, because you have, access to other resources and knowledge that you just don't have on your own. So lots of support there. You guys are eligible. I think there is a fee, one-time fee, $30, something like that. Yeah. They do social events as well, volunteering. They get guest speakers. Okay, currently our president is Brenda Mix. Our vice president is Nikki Thomas, and our secretary treasurer is Ashley Haugen. Brenda and Nikki, I believe, are graduating next week. So my guess is that there will be nominations for a new president and vice president. So now is a great time to get in, because there might be opportunities for leadership down the road, and it's a great thing to add to your resume. And hopefully Ashley will be staying on. This was from our very first induction ceremony. So they do like it. You guys will laugh because the induction ceremony, it's like you would repeat this like pledge, as a member of Phi Alpha, I'll do these things and care about my community. And it's very reminds me of like watching like Legally Blonde or something where they have like fraternities and sororities and stuff. And so it's kind of fun. It's just a fun way to connect with other people. So encourage you to do that. Dr. Min Young Lim is our, this is the Minnesota chapter of Phi Alpha. So all these other universities are part of it as well. And so that's part of the community that you get exposed to by being part of Phi Alpha. Dr. Min Young Lim is the advisor for this. So I'm going to leave this slide up for just a moment. If you want to get involved in Phi Alpha, just shoot her an email and she can give you all the details. I encourage all of you to do this. It's great for your resume and it's fun. It's funny as well. The university I was at before, when they would do the induction ceremony, everybody had a candle and it's just kind of funny. So I think you all will enjoy it. And it's great to connect with people from other universities too, because it can get, at your own university, you get a little isolated into your own program and you get that insulated sort of mentality about everyone aligning in the way that we think or we are doing things. But it's so good to have connection with other universities too, and kind of see like, hey, how is this course going at your school versus our school, and how can we improve, and what knowledge should be added to that. So I encourage all of you to do that. All right, so our mission statement: Bethel University's MSW program prepares graduate students for advanced ethical and professional clinical social work licensure and practice, emphasizing the commitment to the social work values of service, social justice, dignity and worth of the person, importance of human relationships, integrity, competence, human rights, and scientific inquiry. Grounded in scholarly research, program content focuses on advanced social work knowledge, values, skills, and cognitive and affective processes which equip students to be advocates of hope and change. So that is our mission statement. Those words that are in bold are the values of the profession as outlined by the National Association of Social Workers. So this isn't something we just made up. This is what are identified values for the profession. I would just note that, I think in public, in the community, so often social work is misinterpreted as being like, oh, we just casually want to help people because it feels good and we want to help. We are rooted in data and research. This is a scientific and clinical profession. We are intervening in people's lives to hopefully walk alongside of them and engaging their own strengths to address whatever they have identified as concerns in their life. But the interventions that we are engaging with are ones that have been proven through research to be effective and are not just our good ideas about what we think they should do, right? It's based on what the client is identifying as a goal for themselves. And our intervention is truly based on the data that supports that intervention. So it's not just about feeling good, it's about what has been shown to actually work. And so I always am like advocating in the community and with other professionals. And this is something I see a lot, even working at Mayo, right? I had this today, even where I'm having to, sort of educate professionals in other areas, because so often social work is like in a secondary or tertiary setting. So what I mean by that is it's not a social work agency. Mayo Clinic is not there to provide social work. They're there to provide medical care, right? They just so happens that there are social workers who are there to address the non-medical needs of patients, right? So I'm in a setting that is not a social work setting. That's a medical setting. And so often I have to communicate with the multidisciplinary team. So the doctors, the nurses, administrators, you name it, about the purpose of our role and what the needs of the patient actually are, because they're so focused narrowly on the medical piece. Your arm is broken, we put it in a cast, right? Sometimes there's more to it than that, right? How did they break their arm? Are there safety issues at home? Do they lack access to a safe house? Are they living outside? Do they have issues with addiction that prevent them from recovering sufficiently? Do they have an open wound that they can't clean because they live outside, right? Like these are things that the doctors are not going to address, but so often I'm having to remind the doctor, I'm not just here to hand out a bus pass or a parking certificate, right? I'm here to make sure that you are looking at the whole person and not just kind of zooming in to that one thing that you see as the problem, because you can put a cast on, you can put a Band-Aid on, they're going to get hurt tomorrow if you're not addressing the reason they got hurt in the first place. If the reason they got hurt is because they live outside and they can't clean their wound, or they can't, sleep under a roof and it's cold outside and so they got hypothermia, right? Like if you can't address the root problem, they're going to keep coming back for more Band-Aids and more casts. So the social worker really is there for a much more intense purpose, which is to look at what is the root problem in this person's life, right? Because we can fix that emergent medical need, but if we don't address the root problem, this will continue to happen. So I get on my soapbox a little bit about this stuff, but it's so important for us to communicate to the professionals that we work with, because so often social workers are in schools, hospitals, jails, settings that are not meant for social work. But if we aren't there to help those professionals see the bigger picture, we're never going to address social issues. They will continue to become problems for people in their lives. So I just encourage you to remind folks, this is an evidence-based profession. This is research-driven. We come from a scientific, inquiry background. This is not just about what feels good. This is about what does the data show will actually help people to change in their life. And so I really would empower you to start thinking of it from that perspective of this is about so much more than just helping someone today. It's about really treating the whole person in whatever setting that you're in. Any thoughts, questions about any of that? Let's see. So all of you are going into your 700 level courses, but some of you have done the 600 level and some of you are advanced standing. Yes. How many of you have done the 600 level courses? And how many of you are advanced standing? Okay, so the vast majority. So the 700 level, whether you're coming as advanced standing and this is you're just starting the program, or you've done the 600 level courses because you had a degree in something other than social work coming into this, you know, that 600 level, you were looking at that generalized practice. Whereas at this 700 level, we're looking at specialized competencies. So this is where you really hone your skills because you've gotten that base knowledge that you need to be successful in social work. Now we really want to get into the weeds, get into the details of the skills that you need to do good practice moving forward. So we're looking at descriptors, behaviors, and dimensions of knowledge. Oh, that's the same slide. Okay, so all of this is to prepare you for licensure. So I'm going to just open this here. Okay, so our competencies are based on, if you guys will remember, I told you there are 9 competencies that the Council on Social Work Education requires us to say you are competent in to graduate. So if we look at that from a specialized standpoint, I'm going to go through the bolded here, the specialized competencies. So the first is justice-informed, ethical, and professional social work practice. So as a part of that, we're looking at making justice-informed ethical decisions by applying the code of ethics, applying continual self-reflection and self-regulation strategies to monitor how personal and professional values and experiences intersect and possibly conflict with the values and beliefs of a justice-informed model of practice, engage in consultation, supervision, and continuing education to create solutions to injustices at the micro, meso, and macro levels, utilize justice-informed critical thinking strategies to resolve ethical dilemmas across multiple ecosystems, and use technology ethically and appropriately to facilitate justice-informed practice outcomes. So that's our first thing that we want to see you become competent in this year. So that's already a lot. That's just the first one, right? Competency 2 is to engage diversity, difference in justice-informed practice. So as part of that, we want to see you apply justice-informed social work theories and modalities in manners that are culturally appropriate and relevant to members of diverse and marginalized and oppressed groups. We want to see you identify and continually examine the impact of various and complex personal and systemic injustices on clients' well-being, practice with cultural humility, and see diverse peoples as experts of their own culture, priorities, and needs, not for you to dictate that to them. Provide and advocate for effective communication with clients of all cultural groups and communication abilities, and understand specific cultural values, language, social, and economic indicators of individuals, families, and communities. Our third competency is around human rights, social, economic, and environmental justice. So we want to see you remain current in the knowledge of different forms of oppression and ways oppression is manifested at the local, national, and international levels. Empower clients and constituencies to advocate for social, economic, and environmental justice. Empower micro or one-on-one, like person-to-person level recognition of social, psychological, and economic conditions with a social justice perspective. Engage micro level clients in a collaborative process that focuses on enhancing their economic, psychological, and social conditions. And I think this is one I just want to highlight because too often, and I find this to be less true at the master's level, but too often folks go into social work with this idea that you're there to save someone else, right? That is not our job. And it is not about us as the professional. It is a collaborative process where we're focusing on enhancing the strengths that already exist inherently in the individuals and folks that we're serving, right? So it is not about us, it is about the client and their desires and what their goals are and helping them to utilize their own strengths, not stuff we are doing for them. It is not about us. So I just wanted to highlight that. We also want to engage meso level constituencies in a collaborative process that focuses on enhancing the social and economic well-being of client groups and communities. Like, it's not even just about the individual. It's like, how are we representing in the community? How are we encouraging a healthcare system or a school to do better at meeting the needs of those in their community that are not doing well, right? Like, if you're based in a school setting and you see that there's a common theme that, like, hey, I'm noticing that all the seventh graders, not all, but many, maybe are experiencing this one thing, right? Talking to the administrators about, hey, we need a support group for XYZ. We need to provide more resources for this particular need, right? So it's not just the one-on-one work, but it's that agency level work to that meso level, and then engage in macro level constituencies and advocating for human rights and the elimination of discrimination, oppression, and injustice locally, nationally, and globally. So, we take our students to the Capitol every year to go speak about different bills that are being proposed that would help to reduce injustices, that would help meet the needs of our communities. Like, that's macro work, right? So many social workers, this is one thing I love in social work, right? It's not just about the clinical and the one-on-one. If your goal is to do one-on-one work and do therapy, great. That is something we can absolutely do, and you will be very employable with a social work degree. But we're also there to do things like legislate. There are social workers who are senators, who are representatives. And if you go, so I go at least every other year, if not every year, to Washington, D.C., because there's a conference there where it's like a lot of the people who are actually writing the bills for representatives, senators, lawmakers, who are social workers, and they go to this conference and they are updating themselves on what is the most relevant data and research that shows what is best for people in terms of creating positive change. They're the ones writing the laws. Okay, it is something that the social work community is very involved in. So yes, one-on-one social work, doing therapy, that is important work. But social work is not just micro, it is macro as well. It is legislation, it is policy driven. So I encourage you to get involved in that piece too. Competency 4 is justice-informed research and research-informed practice, which is what I was just talking about. Understanding how to conduct justice-informed research is important. Applying an anti-oppressive framework to research, which critically evaluates micro, meso, and macro issues relevant to marginalized and oppressed populations. And applying research skills, which demonstrate an understanding of the importance of collaboration when conducting research with marginalized individuals, families, groups, and communities. Our competency 5 is similar: engage in justice-informed policy practice. Understand, analyze, and evaluate Indigenous, local, state, national, and international policies and laws perpetuate injustice for individuals, families, groups, and communities. Engage clients in formulation of creative, collaborative, and effective justice-informed policymaking. This is so key. This is something that I think is so underrepresented, which is that if we're creating policy, let me give you an example, right? So if we're talking about like SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is also commonly referred to as food stamps, if they're making wide sweeping changes to SNAP or food stamps, they should talk to the people who get food stamps. What do you need? What would be helpful for you? How can we best support you? When legislators and people who are in places of power do not talk to the people who are getting the resources, they are missing the boat, because we don't understand what it would be like to be in that position. And some of us do or have known that. But I think when you get to those levels of bureaucracy where it's people who are writing bills, they are not necessarily in touch unless they listen to the people who are actually utilizing the programs that they're writing bills about. Okay, so we want to be agents of change in that, right? Making sure our clients are heard. Their voices are just as important as the voices of people who have privilege in those situations, right? So we want those voices to be heard. We actively advance the implementation of comprehensive justice-informed policy, challenging structures of power and privilege across micro, meso, and macro systems. The next, so competency 6, 7, 8, and 9 read very similar. And I think this is something that's often difficult for students. And it was for me when I was a student. I don't think anybody ever explained to me what is the difference between these two. They read the same for the most part. So it's engage with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities through justice informed practice. So competency 6 is engage, 7 is assess, 8 is intervene, and 9 is evaluate. So it's a nuanced difference. The rest of it is exactly identical, right? So it's the people we work with, individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. But we want you to learn how to engage them, how to meet them where they're at, how to build rapport, how to start the conversation, right? Then we want you to be able to assess them, assess what is the problem, what does the client identify as the problem, and then we want you to intervene. Okay, if we know that the research says that cognitive behavioral therapy with a person who's experiencing generalized anxiety is the intervention, then let's start that process. Let's do cognitive behavioral therapy, right? So it's like, I've engaged them. I've realized that they have anxiety disorder or they have depression. I've assessed they meet criteria for this diagnosis. Now I'm going to intervene with cognitive behavioral therapy because that's what the research says. And then ultimately, competency 9, I'm going to evaluate. So have they progressed? Are they doing better? Have they reduced the number of days where they feel hopeless and depressed or, sleep through the day? So it's like, they seem sort of like vague, but really what we're asking you to do is to assess the person, to engage the person, assess them using your professional skills, intervene with what we know are tried and true interventions or research-based interventions, and then evaluate your work. So that's what those last 4 are. I think it comes across as being just so pie in the sky, but really it's just those core skills of social work: engage, assess, intervene, and then evaluate. So those are our competencies and what we want to see you guys excelling in order to graduate from the program. Thoughts, questions? I feel like I'm starting to use my yelling voice, which I never like because I can hear myself and I'm like, now I'm yelling at a screen. And I'm sure my family upstairs is like, what is going on? So any thoughts, you guys?
I have a question. I have something similar to that description of the 8 competencies, but yours looks more detailed. Is that on the resource page?
It's on the resource page. And also we will email you a copy of these slides that has, this is where it says specialized competencies is a link. And you're right. You're totally right, because what you probably have is at the 600 level, they are more generalized. So they're the competencies are a little bit more specific in that 700 level.
Okay.
So you're totally right. It's shifted a little bit now that you're at this level.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions right now, you guys? Okay. Let's see here. All right. Some of the nitty-gritty stuff I'm sure you guys all want to know. How many of you are not in Minnesota? 0. Okay. Everybody's in Minnesota. So after you finish your MSW, you can get an LGSW, which is a licensed graduate social worker.
I'm not in Minnesota.
Okay. Thanks, Miranda. You will want to check with your state about license. What state are you in?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Okay. They have a very similar structure. I can send you, let me just write this down. Miranda, what's your last name? Wayne. I will send you information about the Wisconsin licensure stuff. I was licensed there as well, so it's very similar. I will say this is important for Minnesota folks because, so for example, like the 17 years roughly that I practiced in California, I didn't ever have a license because in California, unless you're doing private practice or like individual therapy, you don't have to have a license at all. You have to have an MSW only. So then I came to Minnesota and like, here I am, like having been in social work for almost 20 years. And it's like, okay, now I need to go back and like get my licensure. Oh, and Lucretia's in Iowa. So let me send that. Lucretia in Iowa. Okay. Thanks, Lucretia. So this is important for you all to know because in Minnesota, you cannot practice without getting a license at all. So you will start this process probably in the spring. Usually in December, we have someone from the Minnesota Board of Social Work come to the practicum seminar, which is held every other Wednesday night or on Saturdays, depending which section you're in. We will have someone from Minnesota Board of Social Work come to present to talk with you through like when to apply, when to take the exam, et cetera, et cetera. You will start off by pursuing that LGSW, and then you can look toward getting the LISW or LICSW. And we'll talk more about this. LICSW, so like, it's funny because I'm talking to you all about this. I still have my LGSW and I've like way surpassed my hours and I just need to take the test, but I just keep not signing up to get my LICSW. So maybe you all will be taking the test alongside me. You never know. But LICSW allows you to practice without supervision. So when you have your LGSW, you're going to still have to have a clinical supervisor. Typically, work sites will provide that to you, but that is a question come spring when you're starting to think about employment in social work that you will want to ask. That's a huge, huge, huge benefit is, do they provide supervision? Do they provide continuing education? These are questions you're going to want to ask because let's just say in theory, a job maybe pays you less, but they offer supervision. It might be worth it to take that because supervision, they can charge you like $250 an hour for supervision and you need hundreds and hundreds of hours. So if an employer is offering you supervision paid, that is a huge benefit. And to your question, earlier, the test does cost money. Yes. I can't remember the cost for LGSW. LICSW, it's like 200 something, I want to say. So this is all stuff. I also want to encourage you not to get too hung up on the licensure piece until after the holidays, till after Christmas. I can't believe I'm even referring to the holidays at this point. But there's not much you can do prior to that because you're still in your classes because they only let you start doing that work closer to your graduation. So I would say to not get too fixated on this until months from now, because otherwise it's going to stress you out and there's nothing you can really do right now anyway. And we will provide you with support from Board of Social Work before you could even apply to take the exam. All right.
Actually, I have a question on that quick, out of curiosity. Yes. With the with the supervision hours. So if somebody's still doing their BSW, like their LSW supervision hours, and now in their like in advanced standing, and now they get to where they're doing their supervision hours, their MSW supervision hours, how does that like double up for your hours, or do you have to do both hours? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Okay, so you or whoever is working on, or you're getting your BSW, LSW supervision hours, can those hours then be used toward LGSW? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't think so, but let me reach out to my contact at Board of Social Work. Because I don't think you can start collecting hours for LGSW until you graduate.
Right. Okay.
So whatever hours you're getting right now can't count for LGSW because you haven't graduated yet.
Okay. Yeah. So I was just curious.
Let me find out though.
Okay.
I will find out. I'll reach out to my contact and see what she says at Board of Social Work. That's a good question though. Any other questions before I move on, you guys?
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
So in regards to the exams, so I'm kind of in a similar boat, like I'm finishing up my LSW hours right now. And then once I'm done with my MSW supervision hours, like, does it make sense to take the LGSW exam, or does it make sense, like if I'm going to pursue the LICSW, to like not take that exam and then do the additional hours and then take like the LICSW exam? Does that make sense?
It does. You can see I'm writing a note to myself because I don't know the answer. That's a really good question. Like, I think you have to, this is what I think, and then I'll clarify just to make sure I didn't tell you the wrong thing. What I think is that when you graduate, no, I'm second guessing myself. Well, you can get the LGSW without having had supervision hours, just upon graduation. And then once you have the LGSW, start collecting your hours, your 4,000 hours for LICSW. But my guess would be LGSW would allow you to get paid more from whatever place you're working at and would make you eligible to work in more places than an LSW. So all you have to do after you graduate to get the LGSW is take the exam, which you'll be well prepared for. And there are tons of prep tools too. Whereas you have to collect 4,000 hours. It's like a couple years worth of hours to get the LICSW. But in the interim, it might be beneficial to have that LGSW to get hired in places that want it and to get paid more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, and that's accurate. I work in special ed, and you definitely move across the pay scale when you have your LGSW versus your LSW.
Yep. So I would say it's mostly about like, you're going to have to do those 4,000 hours, supervised hours anyway, whether you're going from LSW to LICSW or LGSW to LICSW, you may as well be getting paid more in the meantime. That would be my thinking. But again, I'll try to get some feedback from Board of Social Work too, just to see if I'm not hitting the mark on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So we will give you, so in Minnesota, they require like clinical clock hours for getting your LICSW. We will provide you with those 360 clinical clock hours. So that is not a concern. One course credit equals 15 hours clinical content. I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. So the first time that I filled out my clinical clock hours form, I was like, oh, so each class was worth like 15 hours. No, if it was a 3-credit course, it was worth 45 because it's 15 hours per credit. So if a course is 2 credits or 4 credits, like 4 credits would be what, 60 clinical clock hours for a 4-credit course. So make sure you're giving yourself full credit, because I like filled out my form and I was like so pleased with myself. And then someone's like, you are not giving yourself enough credit for this. So just make sure you remember that 1 course credit is 15 hours. So if a course is 2 or 4 credits, you're going to multiply that, right? Okay. This is stuff that you can look at later as well. But they divide up the clinical clock hours, meaning clock hours of coursework, into differential diagnosis, clinical treatment planning, clinical intervention methods, evaluation methods, social work values and ethics, cultural context, diversity and social policy, and culturally specific assessment and intervention. And then we have this, can you guys see this? Yeah. Okay. Like it shows here which courses and course numbers count for the different hours. So you guys, when you get this PowerPoint sent to you, make sure to save this, because when you get that form, then it'll be so much easier for you to just plug in the numbers. So we will send you this as well. This makes it so much easier. Okay. So we have to tell Council on Social Work Education that we have assessed you in 2 ways for every single competency. So 9 competencies, that means 18 total, right? So for each competency, we assess, so all 9 competencies are assessed that you are competent in those competencies, I'm repeating myself, in your practicum. So that's one of the ways for every single competency. Then each competency also has a correlated assignment from coursework that helps us to evaluate if you've met the competency. So some of your courses, there will be an assignment that is included in your evaluation of whether you're competent or not, in order to graduate, so that we can tell CSWE, we assess them in their practicum, we assess them in their coursework. They have been shown to be competent in this area for each of those 9 competencies. So just for awareness. We will give you these. I think that these dates are wrong at the bottom, but no, they're not. You will be given a link to this SFACI. All of this stuff in this slide, I'm pointing to the screen as if you can see my hand. This will all be not for a grade. This is for our measurement of your skills. So it's like a pre-test, post-test kind of thing. You don't need to worry about it. You just take it and answer it to the best of your ability. This is required for accredited programs to do this evaluation. This is not for grading. So just know that when you get it, take it, do your best. That's all we're asking. It's for our own documentation, and it ends up being like anonymous. Like we don't know who scored what. It's for us to collect data. So sort of like us talking about being a research informed profession, we are a research informed program. Do we see that our students coming in have learned something when they leave? That's essentially what we're doing. So just make sure that you follow up. It sounds like they're going to send a link to this tomorrow to you all. And you're required to complete it before you start your coursework. But again, it doesn't affect grade. We're just collecting the data to show where you were at before you started your 700 level courses, and then where you will be at the end. So just keep eye out whenever you see an email about the FACI or the FAPI. Just respond to it, do your best. Yeah. This is way down the road, but when you're done with your coursework, there will be an honors and pinning ceremony. So please know there are awards for excellence in practicum of practice, excellence in research, and social justice, human rights, and advocacy. So as you do your work throughout this next year, year plus, keep in mind that we are watching what you're doing. And at the end, there will be someone who gets an award for each of these things for the department, which then can go on your resume or your CV. So just something to keep in mind to pursue potentially if that's something that you strive for. And if you don't, that's fine too. All right, 7:26. I think we're making good time. This is the last of it, which is in preparation for tomorrow's research session, which is going to be led by Carrie Jaguch. And quite frankly, I'm not sure if it's Jaguch or Jagish, but she is the librarian assigned to social work. She will be, again, tomorrow working with you all on how to find research, how to incorporate that into your work. If you could go to this link, I will put this in the chat. Or not. Hang on. Copy link. I'm going to put this in the chat, and then if you can all just copy this. This will help you to prepare for your time with her tomorrow. So just pulling up here. There you go. So I think I talk fast and it can be a lot, but we got done a little early. So any questions, thoughts, concerns before we end tonight? Because tomorrow is going to be a long day for you all.
Will she be able to help at all with finding textbooks? I don't know if like some of the courses just don't have books, but I haven't been able to find. What'd you say?
Some don't. We do try our best to make sure that all resources are free. Now, there are some exceptions to that where there are some books you just are going to have to get. Like, for example, the DSM. It is what it is. But you have to have that professionally when you graduate anyway. But beyond that, we try to make things free. So some courses won't have books, but most we use open books or open sources. So there should be a link in your syllabus for most courses to any book that you need that's available for free. But any books that aren't available for free, you should ask her about tomorrow.
Okay,
and yes,
thank
same
you.
Zoom link, Grace, same Zoom link for tomorrow. Lucretia, yeah.
Going back to the whole books for free or whatever, there was a lot of, like in my second class, a lot of issues trying to get access and to some of the articles that were sent to me, that said that you guys didn't have access or we didn't have access with the links and stuff. And so there was just a lot of issues going around that. And
and that's something
I know,
faculty, when they teach the course, should be validating that the links work. So I can communicate with my colleagues too about making sure our links are working.
Yeah, I know. I can't think of her name. She told me to call it. I always ask my instructors what they want to be called, by their first name or whatever.
Yeah.
Min Young.
Yeah.
She said, she was very, very helpful in getting what I needed. I have to tell you that, every time I emailed her, she was really helpful, but because there was several in her class as well that just did not want to open or whatever. But yeah, she was extremely helpful.
Good. Yeah. As faculty, like, we're not perfect either. And so sometimes we've got links that they worked one week and then I think that is, I will say as a faculty member, like I find that to be one of the challenges is that when you use free resources, it's great because it's free, but then sometimes they stop working. And so it's like an ongoing challenge of like, okay, well, that link no longer works because it's free and now they want you to buy it or whatever. So I do think that is an ongoing challenge for faculty, but we do still want to try our best to make sure things are free as much as possible. But it can certainly cause challenges. I'll say that for sure.
Also, I know that when I was trying to find peer-reviewed articles for certain things, and I was going through the Bethel library, it would kick me off. Say I'd spend enough time on there. You've been on here too long.
Oh, geez. Ask Carrie about that tomorrow.
Okay.
Because I would love to hear the answer to that too. Yeah.
Okay.
Great question though. And I appreciate that point. And that's a good reminder for me to reach out to faculty and just say, hey, we need to remember to be checking those links regularly because I agree. It can work one week and not the next. And that's so frustrating. So for you and for us too. So. All right, you all. Well, I will open the session tomorrow to make sure that things are going okay with the Zoom. But then I won't be with you the rest of the day tomorrow. My little one has her ballet recital tomorrow. We'll see how that goes because last year she walked out on stage, waved at the family, picked her nose, and then it was pretty much done after that. So we'll see how tomorrow goes. But I will not be with you for the full day because I'm going to go watch her, I don't know, do something on stage. So I will get things started off tomorrow and then I'll turn you over to my amazing colleagues. So have a good rest of your Friday nights. I've so enjoyed. I'm going to be sad not to hear all the student intros tomorrow, but I can't wait to have you guys in class. It's going to sound crazy, but I'm kind of sad I'm not teaching this summer. So I will see you for sure in the fall. I'm going to be teaching some of the practicum seminars and a bunch of other MSW classes. So like I said, you'll be sick of me by then. So I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Bye.